Today we're going to be covering the bracing tab in a drywall partition condition. Now the bracing tab is going to apply to any additional bracing studs or track that you may need for this partition, as well as it's the housing spot for your channel if you need it in this partition as well. So starting from the left, we have bracing stud 1 and bracing stud 2. Now in most cases, this is going to be set up in two different options. One option with 48-inch centers and the other option with 36-inch centers. And again, this is just so that way on a job-by-job basis, it's a very quick, let me turn this one off, let me turn this one on, or vice versa. If you did end up needing two bracing studs that were going to be different centers, you could turn both of these on and it would calculate that information for you. However, let's talk about how to fill out the bracing stud. Number is going to be number of studs that you would like to drop whenever you hit your centers. Centers are how often you're going to be dropping that stud. Gauge is what is the gauge of metal. Width is what is the width of metal. Length and cut from are also going to be length and cut from of that metal as well. And type is going to be referring to that nomenclature, the SSMA code or the flange style that you're going to be using on this stud. The same information as what you had on the general tab. Continuing to the right, you do have your bracing track. So if you did need to calculate any bracing track for those bracing studs, you can go ahead and turn on that bracing track. Again, very similar to the general tab. Number of runs, so how many runs would you like as you're measuring that partition on the takeoff screen? What is the gauge of metal, the width of metal, and the length of metal? Again, your type is going to be the flange or the SSMA code. Now channel is a little bit different. In this case, you will need to go in and type in the number of runs of channel that you would like. Here we are going to be calculating your 16 gauge CRC. We are going to be calculating that as 1.5" CRC. And then in this case, most of the time, you'll change that to be your 16-foot piece of CRC. If you're not going to be using CRC, feel free to click that three-dotted blue button. Go out here and change this to the other option that you have for channel that you may be using on your project. Now that covers us for the bracing tab. We are going to go over the additional framing tab with you as well, just because bracing and additional framing are going to go hand in hand in a lot of cases. On the bracing tab, we had the additional bracing studs and bracing track that you would need. Here, we're just allowing you to calculate additional studs or just additional track that you may need, as well as we're calculating furring. So channel is located under the bracing tab and your furring is located under the additional framing tab. With the additional framing tab, if you look at your tracks and your stud information, it's all going to be very similar to what you filled out on the bracing tab as well as what you filled out on the general tab. Number is number of studs, center is how often. Again, if this was a radius wall, you could go in and add your radius centers. We're asking for the gauge of metal, the width and the length of metal. Again, the cut from is just if you wanted to order a larger stud to be able to cut multiple studs out of that one. And your type is either the SSMA code or that flange style you're using. For your track, just simply tell us the number of runs that you want. Again, you're producing the gauge, the width, and length of metal. And then the type is that SSMA code or that flange style you're using. When it comes to furring, you'd simply turn your furring on. Here you're going to tell us the number of furring runs that you would like, the thickness of that furring, the gauge of metal. The width and thickness are usually going to be the same. Then you're going to have your length and your height here. Length is for ordering, height is for the structure of how tall you're going to be running that. And then your type is going to be what type of furring are you using. Again, if you need to change that, simply click the three-dotted button and choose from the list we already provide. If the option isn't out there, feel free to copy and insert one of the options that's close, or you can click the blue plus button at the top and create the item from scratch. Now, if you have any additional questions or you run into any issues while you're setting up the bracing or the additional framing tabs inside of the drywall partition condition, please feel free to give us a call on the tech line. We'd be happy to assist you in any way we can. Thank you very much for watching and have a great rest of your day.